Last week at Martinsville, Bradley Hawley went pole to the win ahead of a hard-charging Richard Regan Jr. to take 2 wins in the round of 12 and climb his way back up into the top 5 in the season-long points. But with Daniel Knight's consistency over the last 3 races and a win at Texas, the riding shotgun driver has also clawed his way into the round of 8 and taken the lead in the points for the season. Can Thomas Sink, now second in the points, dethrone him? Is Hawley too far back at 14 points behind? And who will come to the fore and win the year-long playoff championship? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch Round 7 of the Precision Racing League NASCAR Truck Series, sponsored by WEBB Hearing Centers, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Hi, I'm Adam Lundgren, and joining me in the booth is the unflappable Chris Fovey. Our director tonight will be the boss man Joe Peak, and he's using cameras provided by the great Dougie Beard. The repave of Phoenix has spilled into the dogleg and the aprons, making this place nothing short of amazing when it comes to trying to find a line to pass someone. To find out what else makes this place exciting, let's take you down to our track guide.
Welcome to the Valley of the Sun and Phoenix Raceway. Located about 15 minutes west of downtown Phoenix at the base of the Estrella Mountains, Phoenix Raceway opened in 1964. Phoenix is known for its unique tri-oval layout, and in 2011 underwent a facelift for the first time in its history, adding banking to both corners while opening up that dogleg into a high bank sweeping corner with lots of room down on the apron. This resulted in a drastic change in racing here in the desert. The original layout called for using the sweeping turns 3 and 4 to set up a pass in the out-braking zone entering turn 1. But the new layout, especially with the NASCAR-style cars and an open dogleg, encourages quite the opposite, as several different entry lines now exist for turns 3 and 4, often allowing for side-by-side racing and better passing opportunities on the back half of the track. Now, the renovated layout still possesses many risks to overeager drivers here at Phoenix. The apron in turns 3 and 4 can be especially slick on an open-wheel car, and don't forget the wall on corner exit. Turn 4 has claimed many aggressive drivers throughout the years. That wall just kind of feels like it pops out and grabs you at times. And while the changes here have helped make racing more competitive, the age-old rule, of course, still applies. Track position is king. Get out in front, you're sure to have an easier time navigating this tricky track. So what do you say? Why don't we hike up Rattlesnake Hill, grab your virtual chair, and settle in for what's sure to be a great show.
There you saw a couple laps and a couple of beautiful shots here of this Phoenix, Arizona track, but Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about what these trucks are going to be dealing with that we're seeing on screen right now?
Well, this is a big, wide open track for being kind of a tight 1 mile-ish track. Look for these guys to basically turn 2 is going to be the key to the lap. If you can get a good exit off of turn 2 and get a good run down that back straightaway towards turn 3, that's going to be a big difference maker. Tire fall off can be a little bit quick here, dealing with the desert heat on the hot track. And the key to that's going to really be turns 3 and 4. The better you can keep that track, better you can keep the car pinned to the bottom in 3 and 4, the better luck you're going to have as the tires wear out. Look for the drivers to go all over the place as they come off of turn 2 down the dogleg, and look for maybe some apron riding in 3 and 4 as well.
Yeah, definitely. These drivers are going to be all over the place. One thing you don't want all over the place is your hearing, and some people who can help you out with that if you're living in the area is WEBB Hearing Centers. They are family owned and operated since 1972, and they offer top quality hearing aids and service in Arizona. The place where this track is located, in fact. Visit them at webhearingcenters.com. That is web with 2 B's, hearingcenters.com.
And of course, couldn't do this without our league sponsor as well, the ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Visit thebuttkicker.com today to view their full line of products.
I know you guys are eager to hear about the playoff championship, but we're going to do the driver championship for the season-long points first, and that is currently being led by Daniel Knight, who is 4 points ahead of Thomas Sink. who is also 4 points ahead of Richard Regan Jr., at which point then it is another 8 points back to Bradley Holly, and then Mark Kalin sitting only 3 points back of Bradley Holly as well. So, to be honest, the top 5 in one of the tightest battles we've seen in seasons past as well. So, look for these top 5 drivers to be battling for the season-long championship well into these round of 8 and possibly going into the final round at Nashville as well. So, Chris, tell us about the team's championship. How close is that one as well?
Well, that's also closer than we've seen in recent memory, with the two Whataback squads, Jelly Rolls racing on top, and just 13 points back as the Back Row Racing team. A little bit further back, further than we've seen them in years past, the Riding Shotgun Outlaws are back, 50 points in third. And then there's a pretty much on an island there with another healthy margin back to the Rescue Racing Squad 3 team in fourth. And then bringing up the back of the top 5 is the Ballistic Union Squad, 93 points out of the lead, but just a handful of points out of fourth.
And now for the graphic you've all been waiting for, that playoff championship graphic. Now take a careful look here at the drivers in the round of 8, being led by Bradley Holly, Thomas Sink, and Daniel Knight, probably to nobody's surprise. Colton Lane was able to sneak his way in there, keeping those 2 points clear going into the round of 8. Then Brandon Walter was able to get in as well, with Charles Sumner, Austin Hunter, and Brett Adams rounding out your round of 8. Brett Adams, after our last couple of unfortunate races, looking to try and find his way forward here. And if Charles Sumner and Brandon Walter can get some consistency under their belt, you could see them possibly riding into the round of 4 as well. But look for all these drivers to be hunting for some wins over the next 3 races at Phoenix, Homestead, and Darlington. Practice still underway here, about 3 minutes left in practice for these drivers. Now, a couple of things to update you about. We do have a couple of penalties for this race, and by a couple, I mean quite a few. The drivers who are not allowed to qualify and must start at the rear of the race for this week is Brett Adams, Matthew Aubrey, Doug Evans, Danny Cervantes, and Greg Corzin. And then we have 2 drivers with 1 race suspensions, Christopher Williams and Matthew Kolinek. That is a huge amount of drivers that are dealing with penalties this week, Chris.
Yeah, I couldn't make it for the Martinsville race last week, but obviously I missed a pretty eventful race there with all the penalties coming out of Martinsville.
And Chris, why don't you take us through the race details for this race as well, since I seem to have missed that.
Oh yeah, we are supposed to do that, aren't we? This is the 7th of 10 rounds for the PRL Truck Series. These drivers are going to be going 100 laps here in the Phoenix desert. There are 3 spare sets of tires down in the pit area, so including the one that they start on, that's 4 sets of tires for the race. It is a fixed setup series, so these drivers are on an equal playing field as far as that goes. And keep your eyes on that 24 incident limit. Shouldn't see it approach nearly as much as we did last week at Martinsville, but keep your eyes there for possible issues if these drivers get a little too aggressive with each other.
Absolutely, and as usual, we are expecting at least 1 pit stop in this race. But with the amount of tire wear that Phoenix provides for these drivers, we can expect to see them in the pits very often. And visiting our man with many stopwatches down in the pits, Joseph Tevin. Joseph, welcome to the show. And are you expecting this 3 tire extra sets to be a limiting factor, or do you think that's going to be enough to get them through this 100-mile race around Phoenix?
I would hope that it's enough to get them around 100 miles at Phoenix. There's definitely a lot of tire wear around here, but as we see frequently in these truck races, the strategy helps a couple drivers and really hurts a couple, so it's going to be down to who can nail it.
It absolutely will be. Now, as far as the pit stops are concerned, we know just how strong Bradley Holly is at pit entry and exit. And here at Phoenix, the pit entry is very challenging coming off of turn 4, Chris.
Yeah, it's a really awkward angle to make into the pit road here. It's really kind of abrupt off of turn 4, and you sometimes even have drivers that are using the apron as their racing line, so you have a little bit of crossover there between drivers trying to pit and drivers that are trying to stay out on aged tires that are trying to make that apron work. So it's definitely a little bit dicey. We'll see them coming up here shortly on that pit entrance. Right there, you can see it's a really abrupt entrance, and definitely can make things difficult. And as you can see there, the front stretch is also a danger zone here at this track because it's so narrow.
It's even harder to navigate when you have a ton of smoke from spinning trucks up ahead of you. As you can see, it looks like the setup's pretty loose tonight for these drivers, so they're gonna have a lot to contend with. But with 8 seconds left in practice finishing up now, they're gonna go into their lone qualifying sessions. Now, all these drivers will be in their own little pocket universe, I guess you could call it, where they're going to be driving around the track by themselves. They can all qualify at the same time, but they won't have to contend with each other on track, and this allows us to get qualifying done in 8 minutes, whereas it would usually take a good hour and a half to 2. So as we see the drivers now pulling out, we do have our first drivers coming out on track, being led by Ryan Traver and Austin Hunter, who are going to try and get out there and get their laps in right now. Night race here at Phoenix is always an exciting time.
Yeah, and this is just one of the most beautiful tracks probably on the iRacing service as far as the oval track aspect goes. Great scenery here, and it's going to be even better once the sun starts to set.
Here's Brendan Chatley going around the number 59 truck. Brendan unfortunately missed out on the championship this season. The year-long championship. One of those is right. The year-long championship for Brendan Chatley, but he's been fairly consistently running in the top 10, top 15 in most of the races. We see Ryan Traver coming around to start his to get his first lap time in, I believe. So Ryan Traver in the 28, one of our newer drivers to the series. I'm currently just working on building his consistency up. As per usual, Patrick Cowgill puts in the first time of the night and goes to the top of the charts, but is quickly ousted by Nicholas Hunter.
Yeah, there's a few constants in this series, and Patrick Cowgill being one of the first ones to put up his qualifying lap. Oh, as we see Barron Hilton going for a tumble down the back straightaway.
Well, that's unfortunately not the fastest way to put in a time. That's currently going to have him in 6th position with the 28.9. And considering the fact that he finished his first lap, he should be able to put in one more. No, he won't be able to because of his place, the place on pit road. Brendan Chatley jumps up to the lead of the standings at this time with a 27.452.
Yeah, these times are definitely starting to come in hot and heavy here. Looks like Colton Lane had some issues on his lap and he had to abandon ship there as we look at Richard Regan Jr., our runner-up last week, putting in a pretty okay lap. Puts him in the 5th position.
Yeah, Richard Regan Jr. has been very consistent in these last couple of rounds, and let's see whether or not he can follow up that consistency with a decent starting position. He's currently 5th in the queue. Let's see whether or not this lap is going to be any faster. Looks like the drivers are having a lot of trouble with loose off in these trucks tonight. So we're going to expect to see a lot of drivers trying to manage the wheel spin as they come off of the corners. A 27.386 is fastest right now. So Richard Regan Jr. up to provisional pole.
I can't say that's too surprising there. A pretty solid lap for Mr. Regan. He's been very quick this season, and we have Paul Williams coming around now.
Yeah, Paul Williams struggled a little bit on his first lap, but a 27.5 is a great time, good enough for 4th place for him.
That's not bad either, considering he's got 0 practice in.
And finally, we have some of our... Oh, Colton Lane, very loose on the exit, actually clips the outside wall. A 27.497 is his fastest time right now. Good enough for 4th, and I think that'll be the only time he'll be able to put in. Thomas Sink, Bradley Holly, and Daniel Knight are all rolling. These are top 3 in the round of 8 right now. Here's Daniel Knight on screen as he's just started his first flying lap. Bradley Holly has just crossed the line to start his as well. And so it's going to be interesting to see whether any of these 3 top drivers in the round of 8 can set the fastest pole time. As we see Daniel Knight rounding 3 and 4 on his first flying lap. He's a little bit wide, but he manages to keep that thing going straight. A 27.5 flat is going to be good enough for 5th position provisionally. Thomas Sink goes to 8th. Bradley Holly crosses the line with a 0.52. That's only good enough for 7th, but the second laps have been faster tonight.
Yeah, once again, these trucks love the momentum. The more you can get them wound up, the faster they'll be.
So we see Paul Williams coming around for another lap. Paul, having completed all of his, he's going to come straight to pit lane. It's going to be Bradley Holly, Thomas Sink. Thomas Sink comes around and completes the second lap, but it is not faster. Bradley Holly does a 27.357. That's going to be provisional pole for him. And Daniel Knight goes to third, so that will most likely decide it, considering most of the rest of the field that has yet to set times has unfortunately have those penalties. So very interesting qualifying, Chris, for sure.
Yeah, and looks like our front row, really our top three, is going to be a bit of a replay from last week, especially with Holly and Regan right there on the front row.
So that is going to take us to the grid with Holly and Regan in that 1 and 2 position. Daniel Knight going to start off third with Mark Kalin a comfortable fourth. He's started there quite a few times this season. Brendan Chatley starting off in fifth, continuing his consistent runs in the top 10. Brandon Walter starting off in sixth with Colton Lane down in seventh after his hitting the wall on the exit of his second lap. Paul Williams also had trouble on his second lap, starting off in eighth position. Thomas Sink starting off all the way down in ninth, unfortunately for him. Nicholas Schwartz rounding out your top 10.
And then just outside of the top 10, you're going to have Patrick Cowgill in 11th with Nicholas Hunter to his outside. Row number 7 is going to be Kenny Rodriguez and Charles Sumner. 15th place will be Paul Johnson with Adam Shane outside of him in 16th. Then Doyle Lawrence and Jose Medina in row number 9, and bringing up the back of the top 20 is going to be Jose Telez and Stacy Hunter completing your top 20 starters.
Adam Zemke's going to start off in 21st with Brandon Sauls in 22nd, Baron Hilton in 23rd position, and then we have Austin Hunter in 24th. Not a great starting position for him, considering he's also vying for a spot in the final four. Then we have the 25th position being Dominic Magine, the first truck not to set a time, and he just chose not to set one. The rest of the drivers that you see on your screen, Danny Cervantes, Brett Adams, Matthew Aubrey, Adam Young, Doug Evans, and our final driver, Ryan Traver. Out of all of those, only 2 do not have penalties. So that's Adam Young and Ryan Traver who do not have penalties. So quite a few drivers with penalties starting from the back of the grid today.
I'm sure if we thought hard enough, we could figure out something to penalize Adam Young for.
Adam Young, of course, a commentator in our stable as well, so we give him all the ribbing we possibly can, as many times as we can. But Bradley Holly will lead them off with Richard Regan Jr. on his outside. Now, Texas was a very interesting race for sure when it came to these two badly. Martinsville, once again, was very interesting between these two. But the first turn of Phoenix on the first lap, is that outside lane going to be rubbered in enough to get a good turn in?
I have my doubts. I think if maybe a great job firing off at the line can be done, maybe he can stay even with him through 1 and 2, but I don't expect outside line to be of much use here early on.
So as the sun sets in Phoenix, we have that beautiful shot provided to us by Dougie Beard, those on-track cameras for us as they go through the sweeping turns 3 and 4. This has still got the layout with the start-finish straight on this stretch here. So as the pace truck pulls off, Bradley Holly will lead them to the line. He's going to wait for quite a while, but get going. Richard Regan Jr. with a great start, but he's stuck on that outside. Let's see what he can do here as they go into 1 and 2. Clean start from everyone else in the back.
And you can see them right there. They just all fan out once they get to that dog leg, Adam.
Still very clean. All those drivers fanning out when they got to the dog leg. Look at this. That is Daniel Knight already up to that second position, battling side by side with Richard Regan Jr. for that second spot. He's gotten to the inside. Oh, we have a spinner in the backfield. That, I believe, is Nicholas Hunter. That's going to bring out our first caution of the day just at the end of lap 1.
Yeah, tough day for Nicholas Hunter. Had some struggles in qualifying and now finds himself facing the wrong way on the front straightaway.
And this is just exactly what we were talking about, Chris, getting loose off of turn 4. He does get collected. He does get collected by another truck.
Yeah, and that's just going to add to the situation. Looks like he just loops it off of 4, and then you see him slide back up the track and just gets tipped there. Unfortunately, we mentioned that front straightaway is very narrow.
That was Doug Evans that ended up getting into him. So Doug's going to have a little bit of front left damage. We're going to see it from Doug's perspective and see what he does to attempt to avoid this.
And you can see there's just not much room on this straightaway. All that smoke obscuring his view, and then everybody checking up, and smoke clears and there's a truck sitting in the middle of the track.
Absolutely blind in that situation for Doug, unfortunately. So as he trundles along, we do have a couple people visiting the pits. We have Dominic Bajin and Adam Young. Joe, why don't you talk to us? What are you seeing down there as far as these pit stops are concerned?
Well, I was expecting to see Nicholas Hunter and Doug Evans come down to get that damage fixed out of, early and get it out of the way, but actually, it was Dominic Bajin and Adam Young, who I think are just going for an early strategy move. I am looking at the data, and both have actually taken 4 tires, so maybe it's an alternate strategy. We'll see if it pays off.
Well, definitely an interesting strategy to take this early on the pit stops, Chris.
Yeah, I don't really know how that's going to shake out, but yeah, it could just be a move to keep him in the back of the field, and after seeing how that first lap went, maybe they just want to hang out at the back and hope it keeps them from getting mixed up in any trouble.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out for him. Phoenix can tend to be a little bit troublesome for those towards the back of the field, but if you're trapped back there already like those 2 drivers were, there's not much you can do to get back up. Now, interestingly enough, after that spin happened, Daniel Knight was scored in the 3rd position, so it's going to be Bradley Hawley with Richard Regan Jr. still on his outside. Daniel Knight's lined up behind Bradley with Mark Kalin on the outside, so basically nothing's changed up here for the top 5. Even though we had Daniel Knight and Richard Regan Jr. side by side. But as they go through 3 and 4 now, the Mustang pace car will pull off, and that will release Bradley Hawley. Bradley tends to take his second restart at a different time than his first, so let's see where he takes it this time. He does jump early, right at the exit of 4, and that's going to allow Richard Regan Jr. to dive all the way to the bottom, cutting off Daniel Knight. It's going to be 4 line astern as they go into turn 1.
And Daniel Knight tapped the back bumper of the 46 of Regan going into turn number 1. Maybe didn't appreciate that move, Regan pulling down in front of him. But nonetheless, a little bit of contact going into turn 1, but it looks like everybody's no worse for wear.
Daniel Knight a little bit out of the groove there. He's going to try and late apex it to try and get a good run on Richard Regan Jr. He's carrying decent speed down this front straightaway. Is he going to look to the inside of Richard Regan and try and outbreak him? Yes, he is. He's going to dive down to the inside corner underneath Richard Regan Jr. trying to take away that second position. Watch him dive all the way down to the bottom of the track here through the dog leg.
Well, if there's a time to do it here, it is definitely early. This track bakes in the desert sun every day, and unfortunately has a high attrition rate with the tires. So Daniel Knight capitalizing on the tires still being good here. It is relatively cool for Phoenix, so it's only 79 degrees on the track, Adam. But nonetheless, all that sand that blows across the track just turns this into a sandpaper track.
Absolutely. All these drivers definitely are going to be struggling with grip here tonight as we continue to see these top 4 break away. Bradley Hawley out to the lead of this race with Daniel Knight, Richard Regan Jr., and Mark Kalin running in behind him. Then it's Brandon Walter, who's about a quarter of a second back, and Brendan Chatley, Paul Williams, and Thomas Sink.
Yeah, still through that middle of the field, Adam, these guys are racing pretty tight. It doesn't look like they're pushing the issue too much here early on, wanting to get some laps under their belt. But still, none of them are very far away from each other.
No, not at all. And the field's going to have to be very careful tonight because of that loose-off problem that this fixed set seems to have for these drivers here and underneath the nighttime conditions. They're not going to be able to be as bumper happy as they possibly have been in races past here at Phoenix. So these top 4 being very cautious now as we're on lap 9.
Yeah, it seems like this track more so than any of the other ones of this relative size and racing style. It seems to be so sensitive for corner exit. I mean, even more so than what we've seen in some of the other races where the setup has made those corner exits really dangerous. But turn 4 here is kind of a big deal.
Absolutely a big deal for these drivers for sure. So riding on board with Mark Kalin as he comes off of turns 1 and 2. And we can see them going across the dog leg here. There's a nice battle for 5th position between Brandon Walter and Brendan Chatley as they're side by side going into 3 and 4 here. And it looks like Brendan Chatley's going to get that position away from Brandon Walter. Paul Williams now looking on behind them, and the tires already starting to wear away from these drivers.
Yeah, from what some of my track scouts have told me as they put in some laps this week, tire drop-off is really quick here. Like, you see a decrease in time within like 3 or 4 laps of getting some good consistent running on the tires. So don't be too surprised to see tire wear being the biggest name of the game, especially if we get a long green flag run.
As you can see, a nice gaggle tucked in there behind Brendan Chatley, as the top 4 have broken away to almost 1.5 seconds over this group behind them. And these trucks already running pretty slow compared to their fastest lap times. We're talking a good half second slower at this point in the race. So as we're watching this battle for the 5th position, so many trucks involved here.
Yeah, this has been the case all season long for the PRL trucks, Adam, is these fields are so close. I mean, the only 1 second between the top 4 right now, and it's not that much further back to the rest of the field. I mean, these guys have just been so consistently tight on the track. It's made for amazing racing, and probably some white-knuckle moments for these drivers, too.
Absolutely. There we see a side-by-side battle between Paul Williams and Thomas Sink. Thomas Sink trying to cut his way back through the field here. Remember, he started back there in the 9th position. He has not been able to make his way forward at all in his 8th, and now he's moved himself up to 7th position as he jumps up in front of Paul Williams. But he's really struggling to put some speed down. Colton Lane, another one of our round of 8 competitors, now on the inside of Paul Williams, trying to follow him through. These two guys have got to get a move on, because track position is pretty key here, but you can affect passes if you wait long enough and you save that tire life. Remember last season, Chris, we had a couple of drivers save their tires during the beginning of these stints and get some progress done late.
Yeah, that's one thing that you see kind of consistently in these races at Phoenix. The people that are racing up front early on oftentimes are not the people that are racing at the front at the end, just because you'll have a couple drivers that hang out, save their tires, and then magically they're faster at the end of the race and manage to pop in and make an appearance in victory lane.
It looks like Richard Regan Jr. has decided that he's going to come back and waited long enough. He's actually looking to the inside of Daniel Knight a couple of times over the last lap. So he's definitely not done with Daniel Knight quite yet. They've left Mark Kalin in the dust. He's back there by about 1.2 seconds. So the gap from the top 3 down to that battle for the top 5 that we were seeing, now up to 3.3 seconds, and Mark Kalin wedged in the middle of that. Look at the speed that Richard Regan Jr. carries into 1 and 2, though.
Yeah, Richard Regan Jr. is really just a couple turns of luck away from having so many wins this season. He's been snake bit, it seems like, in a lot of these races, but he is consistently a very fast driver in this field, and I'm excited to see him interject himself in the battle we've had all season between Bradley Holly and Daniel Knight.
Now, Richard Regan Jr. may not be in the round of it, but he is 3rd in the season-long points, so he's definitely got all rights to be up here battling with these guys and putting the high pressure on them. So even though he's not in the year-long championship, don't expect him to be pulling any punches when it comes to trying to make passes on these top 2.
That's one of the fun things we see when you have both a year-long championship and a season championship on the line, is there's a lot of different agendas at play here. You have Holly and Knight, who are both in contention for both championships, but then, look at this battle we have going on. This totally interrupted my train of thought there. These guys are like duking it out there as they go through 1 and 2.
Absolutely. These guys were very, very tough on each other for sure, but look at this scatter as they scatter in behind him. Such an insane battle here for this top 6 position. That's Thomas Sink that's riding around on the bottom side, and that is Brandon Walter on the high side trying to hold on to this position. We're watching Colton Lane go through the corner as well.
And this is one of the coolest parts about this track, Adam, is especially through this part of the track right here. You can see you have drivers way down towards that inside fence, people still up on the racing surface. You can do so many creative things here at Phoenix to try to make your truck fast that even though it is a fixed setup race, really these trucks will all be handling somewhat differently just based on the way these drivers decide to race the track.
Absolutely. Whenever I race this track in the trucks, I always tried to wait for those first 15, 20 laps to go away, and at which point then I started to push my way through the field. Because as you can see, well, the trucks have started to wear out their tires a little bit, so you can't be quite as reactive when it comes to defending. And this is exactly the time when I would love to make a couple of moves, maybe try and take a late apex and make a move on a guy. This is exactly the right time to see these kinds of moves happen on track, as we see Colton Lane hounding Brandon Walter.
See, if this was me racing Phoenix, I'd probably already be parked for running into the wall.
Nice battle down in 17th as well. There's about 5 trucks involved in that one as they cut through the dog leg. Just a bunch of messes on track where drivers are getting held up with each other. Yeah, take a look at this gaggle we got going on here through 3 and 4.
Yeah, these guys are taking no prisoners right now, as Dominic Beijing, who did not qualify, has already worked his way up into the 17th position, and he is continuing to march forward. And I believe he may have been one of our drivers that pitted early on, if memory serves me correct.
So as they continue to run, trying to get any sort of track position that they can, the top 3 are still Bradley Holly, Daniel Knight, and Richard Regan Jr. And they still have about 3 seconds back to Mark Kalin, who's being caught by Brendan Chatley, actually. At this stage in the race, we're looking at the battle between Mark Kalin and Brendan Chatley. Chatley seems to have some more pace on Mark Kalin here. He's doing 28.6s to Mark Kalin's 28.8s, so he's definitely gaining, but the question is, can he pass?
Well, you got to think the way he's been lagging back, for lack of a better term, he may have been saving something here for later on in the run. We are a quarter of the way through this race once they get back to the line.
Ooh. A little bit defensive there from Mark Kalin in the middle of the track. Brendan Chatley gave him the bumper coming into the corner, and now you see Thomas Sink coming into the picture. Thomas trying to get a run as well. Brendan Chatley is going to have to do something special here through 1 and 2 to try and get a good exit off the corner and get a good shot through the dog leg, but he doesn't have to if Mark Kalin goes wide. But look at this. The truck's really starting to slip up when it comes to corner exit. That looseness definitely starting to bite these drivers.
Yeah, you can definitely see the handle is going away. The 59 makes a good inroads on entrance into turn 3, but unfortunately loses Kalin a little bit as they come off of turn 4 down the front straight.
And Thomas Sink tucked in right behind these guys, and Kalin is starting to hold up this group for sure. They're all starting to accordion together, but Brendan Chatley gets a really good exit off the corner. He's going to dive all the way down underneath that yellow line, and so does Mark Kalin to try and defend that. Chatley to the inside here of Kalin, as Kalin is forced to go to the outside. Thomas Sink's going to try and follow him through, but Brendan Chatley getting loose on the exit of the corner. They're going to go 3 wide down the front stretch. Look at this. Mark Kalin on the outside, Chatley in the middle, and Thomas Sink on the inside. They're going to go 3 wide through 1 and 2 as well, but Chatley is going to stick it out there on the middle of the road. Kalin on the gray outside has to back out of it. Now it's Chatley and Sink side by side.
And just for a moment there, they looked like they were 4 wide as they went through the dog leg, Adam. This is insane.
Fantastic stuff from these drivers. Thomas Sink washing out just a little bit wide. Chatley has to take a shallow line on the exit, which means that he has to lose a little bit of speed there. Thomas Sink trying to push him out towards that outside wall here on the exits of the corners. He thinks he's got the move done here. Just a little bit. He leaves Brendan Chatley just enough room, but as he dives to the inside, he might be able to get a nose clear, but Chatley's going to send it hard. He might even do a crossover into 3 and 4. No, Chatley's going to let him have it.
That was a pretty strong move there by in front of Chatley there, by Thomas Sink to kind of almost push him up out of the groove. Gave him enough room that it wasn't necessarily a dirty move, but it definitely left the options limited for Chatley.
And as you can see, Mark Kalin in that orange and black machine just continuing to fall back here. His tires have definitely been spent trying to keep up with the leaders at the front of this race. He has now fallen a good 6.5 seconds behind them, as he was only about 0.3 behind them when his fall started, unfortunately. Now, Joseph, I know it's been a bit, but you have some updates on Nicholas Hunter and Doug Evans.
Yep, they didn't originally come in during the caution, but Doug Evans came in shortly after the caution. I guess he thought he had too much damage to continue. He's been sitting in the pits since then, and Nicholas Hunter took a couple laps around, but was really just falling off the pace. He came into the pits, went 10 laps down, but he's back out on track now.
Oh, we had some contact with Colton Lane and Brendan Chatley for P5 rather. Colton Lane trying to go the inside of Chatley there, and This is right behind Nicholas Hunter. There you see it. Colton Lane being challenged by Brandon Walter now, but that was really scary off of turn 4.
Yeah, and I did hear across the driver chat, I did hear Colton Lane come across and say sorry. So sounds like Colton took responsibility for that incident, but luckily nobody too worse for wear as they're all able to continue on.
So as these drivers are once again free and clear to battle with each other, nothing new happening at the front, really, with the exception, actually, there is a little bit of a development. Richard Vegan Jr. has fallen back a second off of our two leaders, Bradley Holly and Daniel Knight, right now.
You almost have to wonder, with the little progress he was able to make on Daniel Knight, was able to close in but not able to pass. Maybe Regan is deciding to lay back, cool the tires, and maybe try to make a push here later on into the run before they start making pit stops.
It would not be the first time that Richard Regan Jr. has made that strategy call for sure. Now, we are 34 laps into this 100-lap race. They get 75% fuel, so arguably they should be able to come in relatively soon to be able to make it to the end on fuel. Here we watch the battle between Austin Hunter and Dominic Magine. Dominic still trying to make his way up the field, and doing so quite effectively, Chris.
Yeah, he is definitely moving up through the field. Dominic has always shown his ability to be a very competent passer out there, and looks like we have a challenge up front happening right now. As you can see the 17 of Daniel Knight all over the back bumper of the 184 of Bradley Holly. These two have had a bit of a contentious season, Adam, so look for no love lost here between these two.
Definitely not. Daniel Knight seems to have the edge on corner exit when it comes to between the two of them right now. Bradley Holly, though, doing an excellent job of navigating the center of the corner, but especially here on the exit of 3 and 4. You can see that Daniel Knight just gets a little bit of an edge there on Bradley Holly. Bradley just hanging on to the truck through those corners. He does definitely have a better line through 1 and 2. But look at that, just losing the traction a little bit on those trucks, man. Those tires are completely spent for these two guys, but they're battling it out like it's the last laps of this race.
And you can see these two both just wrestling these trucks around this track. Very impressive driving we're seeing here. Oozed is Holly once again. The truck is just slipping away from him, it seems like.
And we were on board with Daniel Knight as he was driving sideways off of 3 and 4. This is the great thing about Texas, is that at some point you do kind of have to rally these trucks around. And now we're seeing that happen with these drivers for sure. Bradley Holly and Daniel Knight. At some point, one of them is going to have to bite for a pit stop. And do you think the undercut or the overcut's going to be the most effective today, Chris?
With the drop-off we have with the tires, I really think an undercut would probably be the better strategy. You get those tires changed, get out quick and clean, and then click off as many quick laps as you can. And I really think that's going to be the way to do it.
As these two continue to battle, we have Mark Keelan continuing to fall back through the field as he continues to try and recover from what happened to him. He just got passed by Paul Johnson and has fallen back to 9th position, 9 seconds off the lead of this race. Quite a few drivers just struggling out there with the grip as they have not preserved their tires early on.
Yeah, if you wanted to test your ability to run the truck hard in the early runnings, you're definitely going to be hurting now. We've only had the one caution that was on the opening lap, and otherwise we've been wide open for closing in on 40 laps here. So these tires are definitely feeling it right now.
Yeah, fantastic driving from everybody to stay on top of this truck as it continues to develop. A little bit of contact there between Daniel and Bradley as they went through 1 and 2. Not enough to upset Bradley too much. Remember, these drivers have to be very careful considering how loose these trucks are on the exit of the corners. You can't give these drivers too much of a bump through the center, otherwise it's going to spin them out. It's something we've seen in weeks past. Wow, Bradley Holly looking like he's so loose he's almost neutral on the exit of the corners.
It's almost amazing the way these drivers seem to have issues almost in stereo. It seems like as soon as one has a problem, the other one does. And unfortunately, it's got to be really frustrating for Daniel Knight, who's not really able to capitalize on how fast his truck is because he seems to be slipping up right on schedule with Bradley Holly.
Both of these drivers very quick, and both of these drivers looking for a win to secure their spot in the championship 4. Expect to see a battle like this pretty much every week for the remaining 3 races of the season after this one. I mean, these two have been fighting tooth and nail for about 3 seasons now, at the very least. And I wouldn't expect to see anything different going into the rest of the season here. Well, look at this. Daniel Knight trying to do a little bit of a late apex. He's trying to get an edge on Bradley Holly. Is he going to look to the inside this time? Yes, he is. He's going to stick his nose in there and get to the inside of Holly. But can Holly carry the momentum off of the corner? Daniel Knight's going to take a very shallow exit, cross underneath that blue cone on exit. He's all the way down to the wall, but he just couldn't get the power down out of the corner.
Yeah, it's maybe a move that would have been a little more successful earlier in the run, but looks like he gave up a lot of time to fail at that one.
Fortunately, he's able to gain it back off of 3 and 4 here. Oh, look at this on the replay here. We're going to ride on board with Daniel Knight. You're just going to hear the tires just slipping as he goes down to the bottom of the track here.
Yeah, I really feel like, Adam, if he was able to keep the tires underneath them and maybe try to move like that earlier in the run, I really think it would have been successful. But unfortunately, you can even see right there when he didn't really stick the landing in turn 3. I mean, it's just that those tires are too tired to make that move work.
Back to live pictures now as we watch Bradley Holly and Daniel Knight. They're going to start to navigate with lap traffic. We're looking at P9 here, and Mark Kalen's into the pits. An early, interesting pit stop, Joseph.
Yep, Mark Kalen is the first one to bite. First one to try and pull off the overcut that you guys mentioned before. I assume he's coming in to take 4 tires, unless he's gotten damage that I didn't see. But he stops in his pit stall, and he misses it a little bit, but he's there now. And he's going to go up on the jacks. He's going to get 4 tires as the first car to bite in the pits.
Brendan Chatley jumps in as well as Austin Hunter, who's going to follow... Chatley's going to follow Austin in. So who's going to bite first from this top 2? Is it going to be Holly or Knight? And also, in these green flag pit stops, we know the advantage goes to Bradley Holly when it comes to... Oh, look at this. Here comes Daniel Knight with another move to the inside. He's going to try the same move again. Let's see whether or not he has any better luck on the exit this time. He's not going to take it quite as aggressive. And they also have the lap truck of Adam Shane they're going to have to deal with here. Daniel Knight able to keep side by side. Bradley Holly's going to have to back out. Otherwise, he's going to get caught up behind Shane. But look at this. He has nowhere to go. The crossover not able to happen here. Daniel Knight up to first position.
You almost had to think if Bradley Holly was having flashbacks to Las Vegas there for a second.
I mean, he might have been having flashbacks to last year here at Phoenix as well. So definitely a good move to back out of it here. Now I'm going to be curious to see whether or not Holly comes into the pits this time after losing that position tonight. He's not angling for it at the moment. He's going to continue on his exit, so he's going to stay out as well. So all eyes are going to be on Mark Kalen as to see where he comes out of this. A couple of drivers, the update on Dominic Magine. Remember, he took that early pit stop, so he's got better fuel than the rest of the guys. He's all the way up to 10th at this point as Brett Adams comes into the pits. Oh, we have a spinner in the back coming to the pit lane. That was Danny Cervantes, and that brings out the caution. Well, this changes everything.
We're following along here with Danny Cervantes as he goes through turn number 3 here on the replay. And oh, looks like he gets into the back of the one truck, and it's just kind of a chain reaction incident there.
I don't think he was planning to come to the pits, but he ended up coming anyway. Very interesting stuff. We're going to ride on board with the 47 as of Baron Hilton as he was in the back of all these guys. He wasn't intending to get involved in this either.
I gotta say, I am a big fan of the move of deciding to pit since you were already there.
Question is, did he enter a closed pit, considering the caution was out? But here we go, onto pit lane, all the leaders. All right, Joseph, talk us through it. Let's see who comes out first.
I believe it is literally everybody on the lead lap that has come into the pits. Even Dominic Begin is coming in too, so that strategy hasn't exactly played off for him. But I'm watching Knight and Holly. Holly in the first pit stop, Regan in the second pit stop, Knight in the third pit stop. I assume they're all going to take 4 tires, so it's all going to be down to who can get the best drive out of the pits, who can get the best pit stop. Maybe they're paying their pit crews more, I don't know. But Daniel Knight leaves the pits, but it's not quite enough. Bradley Holly will get the lead back.
Definitely an advantage to the first pit stall here at Phoenix, especially considering the fact that it's around a corner as well. Bradley Holly retaking the lead in the pits. Daniel Knight in second. Richard Regan will come off third. Thomas Sink up to fourth. Colton Lane up to fifth. Aside from Richard Regan Jr., those are our top 4 in the year-long championship. And I think including Richard Regan Jr., those might be our top 4 in the season the top 5 in the season championship as well. So the best drivers in the season so far come into the 4.
Well, like the Macho Man Randy Savage says, the cream always rises to the top.
And Dominic Begin, for the fact that his strategy didn't exactly work out as planned, he's still up to 10th position after starting in the back of the field. So that extra little splash of fuel and possibly a couple a set of tires on there has ended up working out for him as far as getting himself back into the play. Adam Young, who made the same strategy calls all the way up to 16th as well. So quite a few drivers who, those 2 drivers who took that risk, it's paying off for them now.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, it's a bold strategy move to make that kind of play early on, and you really got to bank on this race playing out a certain way. And so far, it's working. Excited to see what Dominic can do now that he's on the exact same strategy as everybody else as far as tires and gas go.
It's a very fascinating race we've had so far. Some great battles for the lead, some great battles all across the track. Now that the drivers have had a taste of how these tires fall off, do you expect them to be pushing just as aggressively at the beginning of this stint?
I think these guys are going to be tiptoeing here on the beginning of this stint on the tires. I think some guys learned a hard lesson, like Mark Kalin and Richard Regan Jr. both seem to suffer from those tires falling off pretty aggressively. So I think we'll see a lot more guys calm down for the better part of this run, but once we get later on towards the checkered flag, the intensity is definitely going to step up.
Mark Kalin, having been the first to pit, fell all the way down to 22nd after going a lap down under the pit stop and having to take the wave around after the caution had happened. So Bradley Holly would be into 1, Daniel Knight in second place, Richard Regan Jr. in third, Thomas Sink fourth, Colton Lane fifth, Paul Johnson, Brandon Walter, Paul Williams, Nicholas Schwartz, Dominic Begin round out your top 10. Bradley Holly jumps on the gas exactly where I thought he would. Unfortunately, not exactly where Daniel Knight thought he would. And Richard Regan Jr. to the inside. Oh my goodness, look at this. He's going to battle for the lead. It's going to be 3 wide, almost 3 wide as they exit 1 and 2. Richard Regan Jr. with no traction there on the low side, but he's still going to try and battle them out for the lead.
Yeah, definitely a more aggressive start than I was expecting. And Regan to the inside of Knight for that runner-up spot. They're going to get very close there as they come off of turn 4.
Richard Regan Jr. loses the momentum. He has to slot in behind them, but look at this. Daniel Knight is putting all the pressure in the world on Bradley Holly right now, almost running into the back of him. He's going to slip to the inside as they exit 1 and 2 and go through the dog leg. Look how deep they're all going down there. Bradley Holly, oh my goodness. Daniel Knight came up a little bit earlier than Bradley expected. He had to swing the wheel to the right, but he's still holding strong on the outside as they go through 3 and 4. Oh, Daniel Knight very loose on the exit of the corner. He saves it, but that's going to drop him down a position. Richard Regan Jr. up to second.
Regan very nearly ran over Daniel Knight as he was sliding around the track, but wow, these guys are racing intense. This is nothing like I expected him on the start. Now Regan all over the tailgate of the 184 of Holly. They're going to head off into turn number 3, and Holly with a much better corner exit, but Regan gets a run towards the center of the corner.
He's going to just barely click the apron, though, and that's unfortunately going to hold him up a little bit, so Bradley Holly's going to be safe on this particular run, unless Richard Regan decides to dab it down to 1 and 2. He does not, but look at this. Richard Regan Jr. so deep on the brakes here, putting pressure onto Bradley Holly. I'm sure Bradley was hoping that when Richard got in behind him, it'd be a little bit easier than with Daniel Knight, but Richard Regan pushing for that win right now.
Yeah, especially after the way Martinsville ended up, you got to believe that 46 machine is hungry for the win. He is just staring at that North Star title logo on the tailgate of the 184, and he is hungry to make that pass.
They're definitely ringing these trucks out right now, but Daniel Knight with that massive slide through 3 and 4 is falling off the back of these guys. He's going to have to wait a bit and try and get his tires to cool down, but look at this as we ride on board with that fantastic shot on from the hood of Richard Regan Jr. as they go through the dog leg. Man, this circuit is just so unique when it comes to that aspect. It's awesome to watch these drivers wrestle these trucks through there.
Yeah, when you think about the NASCAR truck racing, you got to think Phoenix is as close to the perfect track for these machines as any that exist. I mean, this is just a physical track that you can race many different ways, and as you can see here, we have had a tremendous race here as we hit lap number 60 of 100.
So Bradley Hawley still leading Richard Regan Jr. as Richard does not get a great exit off of 3 and 4. Daniel Knight's fallen back about half a second. The one driver I was expecting to be up here battling for this position and is not right now is Thomas Sink, who's almost a second behind Daniel Knight. He's currently holding up a massive train from 4th on back.
You almost have to wonder if he's doing it on purpose, though. I mean, we saw how severe the tire fall off was in that last run, and he wants to be there at the end.
Not a bad idea, but I would expect that there would probably be at least one more caution here in this race. Paul Johnson in the 14 truck actually getting a pretty decent run here on Colton Lane. He's going to dive to the inside. Colton tries to cover him off, is able to get his bumper right there in front of Paul Johnson. That's going to kill his momentum and make him fall back into the clutches of Brandon Walter behind. And now things starting to spread out at the front, but they're getting a lot closer together from 6 on back.
Yeah, Regan might be laying back a little bit here, but like you mentioned, it is heating up towards the middle of the top 10. I gotta say, Paul Johnson doing a great job. Started 15th, up 9 spots here, and working on that 60 machine of Colton Lane. And, you know, especially with the season-long championship contention, something that Colton wants to keep going, you got to imagine he's always good for an exciting race anyway. But with the championship on the line, Colton's probably going to step it up even more.
Absolutely. Dominic Pagine, by the way, an update on him. He's up to 8th position, so continuing his forward progress. He seems to like this track quite a bit. That was him. You can see just being poked on just a little bit by the 7 truck. Dominic Pagine in the 66 black and white machine right there in that middle of that pack. Colton Lane in the red, white, and blue popsicle up there trying to battle with Thomas Sink up there for that 4th position.
Well, look at this field here, Adam. This is just so impressive watching them all drive down the straightaway here.
Absolutely. These truck drivers definitely handling these trucks a lot better than I would expect. They actually possibly have a battle for the lead once again, as Richard Regan Jr. is putting the pressure back on to Bradley Hawley. Daniel Knight there has caught back up to the back of the 2 of them, possibly pushing a little bit more than these guys. But look at this. The truck's getting very tight, and look at that. Richard Regan Jr. hits the outside wall pretty significantly, moved Daniel Knight up to 2nd place.
Yeah, I watched Regan drive through 3 and 4, and I thought, wow, it looks like he might be looking to make an outside pass on Hawley. And apparently a little bit too outside. We mentioned that front straightaway really closes up on you.
Richard Regan Jr.'s problems started all the way back from the time he exited the dog leg. That where he braked on track and the angle of his truck made it so that he couldn't quite get the truck turned through the corner. I ended up washing him out wide into the gravel, or the gray rather, and that ends up pushing him straight out into that outside wall. He's still hanging on to the back of Daniel Knight, but that damage hopefully doesn't come back to bite him later.
Yeah, you got to think this part of the race is now playing right into the hands of Bradley Hawley. Daniel Knight had to really use up the tires to try to run them down after letting the top 2 get away. And now with his other competitor there, Richard Regan Jr. getting into the wall, this could very well be playing right into the hands of Bradley Hawley.
Absolutely. Bradley Hawley, a master at managing his stuff, making sure that he doesn't use up too much. Daniel Knight still has quite a bit of gap to close in order to challenge Bradley Hawley. I think Daniel's best opportunity is probably going to be to wait a bit here, as we see Colton Lane still tucked in behind Thomas Sink. Paul Johnson trying to challenge Colton here. And Paul Johnson struggling a little bit with his connection, unfortunately.
Yeah, that would be that would be a very tough break after running such a good race. Hopefully he's able to get those issues squared away.
Absolutely, as he continues to fall back a little bit. He's now being caught by Brandon Walter and Dominic Bagine, who are having trouble locating him on track. Those two guys trying to figure out a way around Paul Johnson. It's tough, though, when you can't see your competitor half the time.
Yeah, that's one of the most nerve-wracking things when you're trying to pass a driver that's blinking in and out on the track. It definitely makes it difficult to know where you should be on the track, and definitely makes that margin of error significantly larger.
So here goes Brandon Walter to the inside of Paul Johnson. Dominic Bagine's going to try and follow him through. Brandon Walter just can't get the run off at the corner. Paul Johnson, with a good head of steam himself, is going to try and outbreak Brandon Walter into 1 and 2. Almost gets the job done, but with the longer way around and out there in the gray, I'm not sure he's going to be able to complete the job here as Brandon Walter dives down to the inside. Dominic Bagine's going to take a little bit of a shallower line behind these guys and try and get a better angle into the corner, but with Brandon Walter there on the bottom side plugging it up, he's not going to be able to get the run that he's looking for.
Well, so far, he's made it down the straightaway without blinking out again. But still that 99 of Brandon Walter there to the inside of... Oh, and Johnson goes wide through 1 and 2. That's going to definitely open the door for the 99 to get through.
And I've had that moment before on the truck, and you just have to hold the wheel straight and just try and modulate your braking and make sure you don't end up in the outside wall there. Paul Johnson doing exactly what he needed to do. He lost one position there. Oh, looks like Ryan Travers in the outside wall again as Colton Lane had to take evasive action. That's the lap truck of Ryan Travers trying to get around here.
Yeah, this is a hard track to get out of the way when you're a lap down. It's really difficult to find good space to get away.
He ends up getting a little bit loose and ends up at the top of the track there, so allowing all these truck drivers to get by. At the front of the pack, Bradley Hawley's pulled about 7/10 over Daniel Knight. Richard Regan Jr. has fallen off by about a second off of Knight. Thomas Sink about half a second back with Colton Lane, about half a second back of Thomas Sink. And I think, Chris, what you were talking about with Thomas Sink and saving his stuff might be exactly what he's doing here.
Well, I had a feeling when he had slowed down quite a bit, but still had the field stacked up behind him, that maybe he was doing that on purpose.
Side by side here between Paul Williams and Nicholas Schwartz, or rather Adam Zemke in the 57. Adam Zemke diving it down deep into 1 and 2. Is he going to be able to get by Paul Williams? Paul's going to try and hold it strong on the outside here, but I think Zemke's already got the job done. Now Paul Williams under pressure from Nicholas Schwartz behind. Paul starting to drop back here in the later stages of this race. We've reached 3/4 race distance here, crossing into lap 76.
Yeah, we're doing all kinds of fractions today.
Something like that. But here comes the battle once again between Brandon Walter and Paul Johnson for P6. These two guys cannot be separated here. Brandon having made the pass, Paul Johnson trying to battle him back. They've left Dominic Bagine a little bit behind them. But any sort of slip-up from either of these two will bring Bagine right back into it.
Yeah, Dominic is definitely one to capitalize when a situation presents itself. He's already driven up from 25th to 8th after not putting in a lap time during qualifying. And some alternate strategy has him up in the mix here in the top 10. And you can bet your last dollar that he is ready to move up if he can.
So as these two continue to battle, a nice close battle between Colton Lane and Thomas Sink up ahead of them as well for 4th position. As we hop over there, these two guys have been fighting pretty well together. Here comes Richard Regan Jr. back to them after Richard Regan Richard Regan's truck looks pretty rough. And as I look at the stint lengths, we're currently on 26 laps on these set of tires. So these drivers have definitely reached that cliff where the truck starts to become a little bit more of a rally machine.
Yeah, this is pretty late in the run, so these drivers have got to be feeling it at this point. And we're going to see who really did a good job saving their stuff as you see Thomas Sink running down to 46 of Richard Regan Jr. for that final podium spot.
Yeah, and Thomas Sink would love to get this position, get a couple more points towards that round of, towards that championship 4. A couple more points up on Daniel Knight to keep the gap from spreading a little bit too much in the season-long championship. Colton Lane doing exactly what he needs to do to keep himself up there in the points for the championship 4. Richard Regan Jr. not involved in the year-long championship, so with the top 3 in the round of 8 up ahead of him, Colton Lane sitting tucked in behind them, this is exactly where he wants to be.
Oh, and there's the pass for position there as Regan falls back a couple spots. That's going to move Sink up to 3rd, and Colton Lane follows him through, or tries to follow him through.
Yeah, Richard's just not going to fight it here. He just does not have the tires to do it. He's going to try and get Colton on the exit here, but Colton still has quite a bit of grip on the exit of the corners here. I think Colton's going to be able to get this done if he sends it into 3 and 4, and he does. Let's see whether he can hang on. Oh, he gets up in the grade just a little bit there. Richard Regan trying to hold on to the bottom side, but he doesn't have the grip to keep it off of Colton. He has to slide it out of the corner. Colton Lane holds on to 4th. Oh my goodness, and he's just falling. He's just leaking positions like a sieve at this point. Brandon Walter slips through for 5th position. Paul Johnson now catching up to him as well. This race, unfortunately, with that damage caused by the outside, I think he's just starting to turn into something you'd like to forget, I think.
You can see here when he made the contact with the outside wall, we're kind of theorizing here that it could have tweaked the drive for Regan. And you can see him sawing on the wheel, just trying to keep that pointed straight. But it does look like that wheel may be just a smidge off center now, trying to keep the truck driving straight at him. And that definitely affects your ability to race the truck.
Well, let's see it here on the front straight, because that's the actual only straight part of this course. Let's see how straight the wheel is. It's fairly straight. I think he might be hanging on to it pretty well, but it definitely has affected the drive of that machine for sure.
Yeah, either way, he's definitely given up some positions. And you got to think, too, he fought pretty hard for the lead there before he got into the wall. So he may be working with slightly more used-up tires than the rest of the field.
Just an update on Brett Adams, who's currently last in the round of 8, the number 23 machine. He's battling with Jose Medina for the, I believe, his 16th position at this point in the race. So Brett trying to make his way up there. He has Charles Sumner ahead of him in the race, as well as Brandon Walter. So his vie for the championship 4 is not looking super great at this point in the race.
And that's really a tough break because I feel like Brett Adams is really one of the drivers that has stepped up, especially this season, and really has been able to improve his performance and, won a race and definitely has looked impressive. So it's a shame he may not be able to continue on in the championship, but nonetheless, he's put in a really solid performance this season, and it's definitely something he can hang his hat on.
Brett definitely in a must-win scenario going into the next 2 rounds at Homestead and Darlington. We'll keep our eyes on him as the season progresses. But up at the lead, Bradley Hawley leads Daniel Knight by nearly 7/10 of a second. Thomas Sink is, well, as we said, ahead of Richard Regan Jr., who's now fallen back to 6th. Thomas Sink 3 seconds back. I think even though he was saving his tires, that might be too much of a gap to manage at this point. But take a look at this. That's the 23 of Brett Adams, still trying to navigate traffic and a bunch of trucks that want to get by him behind him. 31 actually for position for Brett. That was Patrick Cowgill in the 16th position. So Brett climbing forward, and this gaggle of trucks is all for position here as the 24 of Jose Medina goes under Patrick Cowgill.
Yeah, you do have to wonder, though, it may be just too little too late for Brett Adams to start marching his way up through the field. He did start deep in the field. I mean, he started 27th, but unfortunately, he really hasn't been able to capitalize on strategy or anything, and we're closing in on 10 laps to go here shortly, so things not shaking out the way Brett would like in this one.
A new pit road taker, Adam Shane, into the pits. Joseph, what's going on with him?
That is a very good question. I am watching Adam Shane, and it appears that he's taken 4 tires and fuel. Maybe he's hoping for a caution, but he is a lap down, so not entirely sure what he's hoping to accomplish with this, but we'll We'll see if it pays off.
Well, he's going to have to hope it pays off very soon because we jump up to P4. This is the battle for 4th position between Colton Lane and Brandon Walter. Colton has fallen off a second and a half. Oh, Paul Williams is very slow on track. I think he hit the outside wall through 1 and 2.
Looks like he's definitely having a rough go of it. You can see some damage on the back end of that truck as well. Looks like he's going to possibly head towards the pit lane. Nope, he's over. This is the replay. Yep, he clobbered the outside wall coming off the turn 4.
So this is actually coming through 1 and 2 here on the revised, on this old track layout that we're running tonight. So that was the contact you saw right there. And so he has come into the pits for service, Joseph.
Yeah, the singer Paul Williams once collaborated with Daft Punk to write a song called Touch, and Paul Williams had a pretty big touch on the inside pit wall. As he was coming to pit road, he bounced off the inside pit wall, hit the outside pit wall, so he's got even more damage in addition to what came from the wall.
So here's a giant gaggle here for 15th position. Patrick Cowgill, Jose Medina, Austin Hunter, Matthew Aubrey, Baron Hilton, Mark Kalin, Adam Young, all these drivers battling for a top 15 position here. We're not missing anything at the front. Bradley Holly still out by about 0.8 of a second lead over Daniel Knight. So don't worry, we will jump to that one. Oh my goodness, look at this. That is side by side between the 312 and the 24. That is Austin Hunter trying to go underneath Jose Medina, trying to force him out wide. He manages to get that job done, but that was nearly into the inside wall coming through, coming down the front stretch.
Yeah, Austin Hunter was going to make that pass on the inside, whether he was allowed there or not.
And now Jose Medina stuck on the outside, but it looks like he's getting a pretty good run off there in front of Baron Hilton. Hits the outside wall. Now they all make contact. That was Jose Medina making contact with the outside wall. Baron Hilton runs into the back of him. Mark Kalin into the back of Baron Hilton. They all manage to keep going straight, but here comes Adam Young to capitalize 3 wide as they go through the dogleg.
Yeah, you got to think Adam Young licking his chops on that one, watching everybody ping pong off each other.
And now P15 under challenge as well as Austin Hunter tries to make his way around Patrick Cowgill. They're side by side as they go across the stripe. It's going to be 5 to go for Bradley Holly the next time by. All these drivers down here fighting tooth and nail. They know this is their last chance to make up any positions here. Hop up to P4 with Brandon Walter still chasing down Colton Lane. Colton Lane cannot afford to let Brandon get this position. He wants to maximize the points here, and Brandon Walter is behind Colton Lane in the round of 8. The driver right behind, only 6 points back. This is a battle for position in the championship.
Yeah, I got to say, these drivers, we've said this week in and week out, Adam, but these drivers have just put on such a great show week in and week out, and this one we had pretty high expectations for, and I'd say so far they've definitely met it.
Absolutely. Brandon Walter trying to find his way by. He's sending it deep into 3 and 4. He's going to try and diamond the corner and get a good run on Colton Lane. I think it's going to work this time. Colton just barely hangs on to it there. If he would have gotten any looser, that would have given a great run to Brandon Walter, but Colton doing exactly what he needs to do to stay ahead of Brandon. Brandon's trying to get to his rear bumper here. Oh, Colton very loose off of 1 and 2, but he's going to hold on to that truck. Chris, Colton's looking pretty ragged right now.
Yeah, Colton Lane's one of those drivers that's usually running right on the ragged edge, but might be a little more ragged than he would hope for here as he's trying to put in some laps and get some points here collected so he can stay in the hunt for the championship.
2 to go for Bradley Holly. He's still about 0.7 of a second ahead of Daniel Knight. We'll let you know when he crosses the white flag line, but here comes Brandon Walter once again with a good run off of 1 and 2. He's going to look to the inside of Colton Lane. No, he's going to stay in behind him. Is he going to move him into 3 and 4 here? He is not. He's going to back off a little bit. Colton Lane slinging it into the corner, but we have to go to Bradley Holly, who's crossing the line right now for that white flag. Bradley has done an amazing job this race at just maintaining his confidence up ahead of 2 hard-charging drivers of Daniel Knight and Richard Regan Jr. Daniel has maintained the gap to him of about half a second, but just has not been able to close it. Bradley Holly comes around 3 and 4 for the final time to take a win and secure his spot into the championship 4. Bradley Holly wins at Phoenix. And Brandon Walter, Colton Lane are going to go side by side as they cross the line, but Colton will hold on to that 4th position. Mark Kalin here in a battle with Adam Young. Adam trying to run around the outside, and he's going to get a good run off. Is he going to make contact with the outside wall? No, but they make contact coming across the line. Then they wreck coming across the line. Adam Young will take the position over Mark Kalin and get 18th. Well, definitely an exciting finish in multiple ways for sure. Bradley Holly taking the win here at Phoenix. We're going to take a short break, but don't go anywhere. We'll have those unofficial results for you, as well as some interviews here after the break. You're not going to want to miss this. Welcome back to the Precision Racing League NASCAR Truck Series Round 7 here at Phoenix, the first race of the round of 8 in the year-long championship. Bradley Holly took the win to secure his spot into the championship 4 in a couple weeks' time at Nashville. Daniel Knight comes home in 2nd place ahead of Thomas Sink. Colton Lane in 4th beats out Brandon Walter for those coveted points for the round of 8. Paul Johnson coming home in 6th spot with Richard Regan Jr. after fighting with Bradley Holly and Daniel Knight all day. Just couldn't hold on to his tires or the car, ends up making contact with the outside wall and falls all the way back to 7th. Dominic Bajin, after not qualifying, starts at the back of the grid, takes an early pit stop, and climbs all the way to 8th with Adam Zemke coming home in 9th, and your 10th place driver rounded out by Nicholas Schwartz.
Just outside of the top 10 would be Charles Sumner coming home in 11th with Brendan Chatley right behind him. Jose Chavez was lucky number 13 with Brett Adams right behind him in 14th. And 15th was Austin Hunter with an eventful race with Patrick Cowgill coming home 16th. Matthew Aubrey, a pretty quiet showing in 17th. Adam Young and Mark Kalin wrecked across the line to come home 18th and 19th with Baron Hilton coming home in 20th.
And in 21st, the last car on the lead lap, Jose Medina. In 22nd was Danny Cervantes, who we saw spin into the pits during that second caution. Then in 23rd, Kenny Rodriguez. Doyle Lawrence 24th. Stacy Hunter 25th. Adam Shane had a troubled race in 26th. Ryan Traver hit the wall a couple times in 27th. Paul Williams 28th. Nicholas Hunter 29th. Brandon Sauls, who ran into internet issues in 30th. And all alone in 31st. Trouble for Doug Evans early on, put him last in the order.
We've caught up with Bradley Holly, our winner for the race. Bradley, a fantastic win tonight, but definitely not without contention. You were definitely having to hold off the likes of Daniel Knight and Richard Regan Jr. throughout the race.
Yeah, it was definitely trying to figure out to shift. Honestly, going into the race, I wasn't expecting to because of how the truck felt, but I believe I didn't push the truck hard enough to get my right rear worn out more. So that's when Daniel ended up catching me right before that caution.
And you ended up with a 0.5 of a second faster pit stop under the yellow flag, which ended up seeing you come out of pit lane ahead of Daniel Knight. Do you think that's what made the difference tonight as far as the win is concerned, or do you think it was the tire conservation that you were able to play in the last sequence?
I think it was more of a combination. Once I kind of figured out when I should start shifting, it was to keep the setup loose. It made it a little bit easier to keep Daniel at bay, and the pit stop definitely helped get me the lead with getting me the lead back.
You heard it here first, folks. Bradley Holly, after multiple wins and championships, still learning things here every time he goes out to race, for sure. Now, Bradley, you've secured your spot into the championship 4. What's going to be your focus over the next 2 weeks as you get ready for Nashville?
Getting ready for Nashville. That's pretty much it. And I'm starting probably this week or this weekend. I'm going to be turning at least multiple laps to be ready.
Well, Bradley, fantastic finish tonight, and congrats on the win, and we look forward to seeing you next week at Homestead.
Thank you very much.
That was Bradley Holly, your winner tonight, and it looks like Chris Phobie has caught up with second place Daniel Knight.
Well, Daniel, another solid performance for you tonight. Looked like you maybe had something for him there for a little bit, but maybe slid the tires a little bit and got those used up.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that first run, I did a really good job of saving my stuff, and it paid off at the end there. And really didn't want to see that caution come out after that long run. But then, yeah, that little slide coming out of 4 after that restart I think, killed it just enough to where I couldn't really make it up. But glad I recovered a second. I'm surprised at that.
Now, obviously, we're closing in on championship time with just a couple weeks left before Nashville. Do you feel prepared to take it down to the wire?
Yeah, I do. I was really hoping to get the win tonight and not have to rely on Homestead or Tarlington, both of which can be good or really bad races. But yeah, I've already started putting in practice in Nashville, and I think it's going to be a really, really fun track to race. I'm glad we're ending it there.
All right, Daniel, anybody you want to thank that's helped make tonight's runner-up finish possible for you?
Yeah, all the riding shotgun guys for coming out week in and week out and making this fun to do, and PRL for putting on an awesome league, and you guys for putting on awesome broadcasts. Makes it fun.
That was our runner-up finisher tonight, Daniel Knight. And Joe, I believe you caught up with our third-place finisher.
Indeed, I'm here with third place Thomas Sink. In the first half of the race, you actually went from 9th place to 4th place before that second caution came out. Where do you think you had your biggest advantage in that stage of the race?
Probably tire management. I felt like I was able to back up the corners quite a bit, roll it into the center. I know the center was a little tight, but then I was able to kind of lean on the right rear and just basically try to keep the rear tires as hot as possible and keep that rear end free.
And then when Richard Regan ran into trouble, I believe, that elevated you up to 3rd place. Do you think you had anything for the leaders if we had another caution at the end there?
No, I just didn't have much speed all week. I know everyone was shifting. I didn't feel comfortable shifting. I don't like that super free, loose feeling that came with the shifting down in the 3rd.
All right. Well, for your 3rd place finish, of course, you got a lot of people to thank. You want to give them a shout out?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Muscle Farm for sponsoring the truck. The boys at WEBB, all the time and effort they put into practice and getting us all the stats, trading paints for everything they do. Thank you guys for putting on a great broadcast. And I want to say hi to the girlfriend at home.
All right. That was your top 3 finishers. And to take us out, here is Adam Lindgren.
Yeah, definitely an exciting finish tonight for this race. An exciting start to the round of 8 for all these drivers. And we want to give some big thank yous to our to the Precision Racing League for bringing us on for another season, and a big thank you to their season sponsor, WEBB Hearing Centers. Make sure to visit them at the link in the description. And also the ButtKicker for sponsoring the entire league this season. We also want to give a big shout out to our companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts that are listed here on your screen. As always, many thanks to June Lalonde who provides our awesome music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team tonight, Chris, both of the Joes, and Dougie. If you want to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find us at globalsimracingchannel.com. Also, check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Grant. If you'd like to support the channel, go check out our merchandise store at gsrc.storenv.com. The link is in the description below. If you want to see more racing action, hit that big red subscribe button as long as it's red, and that way you won't miss a moment here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. Now, next week for these drivers is going to be Homestead Miami Speedway. That is November 11th at 8:50 p.m. Eastern, so you're not going to want to miss that. This whole year has been amazing, and I look forward to seeing that race for sure. Now, don't go anywhere on GSRC. We're going to have Lionheart IndyCar Series coming up here in just about 20 minutes, so you're not going to want to miss that one either. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until then, we hope you've enjoyed joining us for this race tonight as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you, and we hope to see you back on our channel soon. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.